Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. My name is Mark Arlepage, and you are listening to EntreArchitect podcast, where each and every week I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. This is episode 341. Author, artist, architect Katie Hutchison is back on the show, and this time she brought a friend. Katie and Dawn Oliveira, a textile designer, entrepreneur, they have a great new podcast, Design Me a House. We talk about how they did it, why they did it, and why you too should launch a podcast as a small firm entrepreneur architect. This episode of EntreArchitect podcast is supported by our platform sponsors. ARCAT, the online resource delivering quality building material information CAD details, BIM specifications, and so much more, all for free. Gusto, easy online payroll benefits, and HR built for modern small businesses like ours. And Monograph, the time tracking and project management tool built for architects by architects. Katie Hutchison and Dawn Oliveira, welcome to EntreArchitect Podcast.
Hey,
Hello,
Mark. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. This is great.
It's great to have you here. This is going to be fun because we're going to be talking about podcasting. And I love podcasting. I've been doing it for a long time. You're just launched a new podcast, and I want to talk about the hows and whys and all of the stuff that comes with it, because I think there are a lot of architects in our community that would love to start a podcast, and I want to learn more about yours. But let me introduce you both, and then we'll get into a little bit more background on you, and then we'll have that conversation. So let me introduce you. Katie is a residential architect, designer, author who has published 2 books with Taunton Press, The New Small House in 2015 and The New Cottage in 2018. Both books are meant to inform and inspire a general audience interested in exploring what it is about smaller dwellings that captivate us and can compel us to live deliberate, authentic, and empowered lives. Katie is a friend of EntreArchitect Podcast. She's been here twice before. Episode 179, living a portfolio life, where she shared her story as an architect, an artist, and a book author, which is a great episode to learn all about Katie and what she does and how she does it. If you are an Instagram fan, you should follow her on Instagram. One of the best Instagram feeds I know. She lives up in Rhode Island, and she does some really beautiful photography and shares some really intentional images. And so it's really a fun feed. And so you can learn more about Katie at episode 179. And then she was back in episode 250, when she published The New Cottage. We talked all about the New Cottage book, but more specifically, how to get published with a traditional book publisher. She shared her entire process of writing and her relationship with the publisher and how she got published. And so that's a really interesting episode as well, episode 250. So, like I said, Katie's a friend here at EntreArchitect, and Dawn is a new friend. Dawn Oliveira founded Oliveira Textiles in 2007 to introduce a collection of contemporary, locally printed fabrics marketed both to the trade and to the general public. Using only sustainable materials like hemp, organic cotton, linen, and low-impact dyes, Dawn creates bold, nature-inspired patterns. After many years working in New York City designing behind the scenes with very little connection to how, why, and where those products are being produced, Dawn made it her company's mission to create healthy textiles that consider environmental impact. And I invited Katie and Dawn to join me here today because they've teamed up to produce a new podcast. The podcast is called Design Me a House, where they not only share with each other in casual conversation what they've learned and think about home design and design for the home, but they share that conversation with a general audience, the larger podcast audience. And I wanted to invite them here to talk about why podcasting, right? Why did they come together, why they chose podcasting, and talk about how they do that. But before we do that, I want to learn more about both of you. Katie, we talked already on 2 episodes. You've given your origin story on both episodes. Episode 179 is a deep dive into your whole history and your background in the design world. And so I highly recommend people go back to 179 for Katie's full story. But I would like, Katie, for you to just share a little bit of your background, just for some context for our conversation here. So share that, and then we'll move on to Dawn and learn Dawn's origin story. So Katie, give us a little bit of background on who you are and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm happy to spare you the very lengthy origin story. So I'm a residential architect. I practice. I'm based in Rhode Island. I serve New England. I'm a RISD alum. So I started off in the field in Rhode Island, moved away across New England, worked for a bunch of small residential architecture firms. And then about almost 8 years ago, moved back to Rhode Island. because my husband and I decided, what a wonderful place to live. It was really a lifestyle choice. We just wanted to come back to Rhode Island. Neither of us is from Rhode Island, but we had spent some time here when I was at school. And so now I am working out of my house on single family residences. And I have, done a couple books that you mentioned. And then recently, John and I launched this podcast, only in April. So this is the latest endeavor.
Yeah. And that's why that first episode is called The Portfolio Life, because you've really created this life of having many, many different aspects, that you are an architect and an artist and a photographer and a book writer, and you do all these different things. Now you're a podcaster. And so you've assembled this portfolio life that you sort of do a lot of different things, and those things sort of feed your soul and sort of, also allow you to share your knowledge with the world. And so it's a really inspiring story to hear how you've done what you do.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that.
That was great, Katie.
So, Dawn.
I learned little tidbits all along the way.
Well, you can listen to episode 179.
I will.
Dawn, I would love for you to dive as deep as you'd like to. I'd like to learn about you and learn what inspired you to do what you're doing today, and share that story from where you discovered that passion to where you find yourself today.
Sure. So I'll give a background here. I am originally from Rhode Island, and I went to school here at UMass in Dartmouth. That's where I studied textile design. I started out thinking I was going to be an art teacher, and found textile design and loved it. I've been an artist my whole life since I was a child. So when I finished school in Massachusetts, I moved directly to New York. I knew that the fashion business and the textile business was based there, and there wasn't a lot up here in New England. Plus, I needed to be in New York. I love the city. So I did that and stayed 20 years. I had a studio in the Garment Center for most of that time. I had a staff of 3 other designers who worked with me. And what we did in that studio, service large manufacturers like Polo Ralph Lauren, like Liz Claiborne. I mean, there were, both home and fashion companies. We designed the printed patterns. We painted them by hand, pre-computer, pre-digital anything. Very long days, but back in the 80s and 90s, there was so much work. If you did good work, it was just a constant stream of projects. So it was great. It was fun. It was lucrative. And I loved being in the city. So fast forward, 2003, my husband actually passed away from cancer. That's how I ended up back in Rhode Island. I never had any intention of leaving New York. I loved being there, although I don't want to be there right now. So I ended up back in Rhode Island, raising my 2 little twin boys. There were 2 when I moved back here. And of course, I couldn't run my business the same way here in Rhode Island that I did in New York. You just, there's a stream of companies in New York that you can work with. You can go visit, talk about projects. They can see the work in progress. I just couldn't do the freelance thing from Rhode Island. So I started thinking about actually manufacturing my own product, which I always wanted to do, couldn't afford to do in New York, but could maybe do it here. And so that's what I did. In 2007, I launched Oliveira Textiles with my sister. She was my partner at the time. And, through all my years in New York, I never had any contact with the actual manufacturing. I was in the studio when I was both an employee and when I was in my own studio. We made these beautiful paintings that got shipped off to a factory. We never knew anything about what the hell happened in the factory. So when I started my company, Oliveira Textiles, I thought, you know what? I don't know where my fabric's going to end up. There's so much fabric in the world already. Maybe I should do this in a different way. And because my husband had been sick and other members of my family had been sick, I kind of just thought I need to do this in consideration of trying to create a healthy product. That was it. And I started researching and found both organic cotton and hemp as great base fabrics. I had to import the hemp. The organic cotton I could buy here or overseas. And, I told Katie, the hemp just totally turned me on. because it's such a bad boy fiber. It's a bad girl fiber. It's got such a history of all kinds. It's got a bad reputation. But that fiber and the fabric is amazing. It fits all the parameters of being sustainable. Don't need any pesticides or chemicals to grow it, and it prints up beautifully. So I started printing fabric and selling the fabric by the yard to interior designers, as well as local customers who understood and were willing to go through the process of custom designing fabric. The fabric was printed here in Rhode Island, both by hand screen printing, and digitally printing in Massachusetts, which I still do. I do a lot more digital printing now than screen printing because of all the reasons that are connected to making a product: lower minimums, lower cost, no restrictions on color, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so here we are today. I'm still producing my fabrics. I take custom orders almost always. I try not to stock a lot of fabric here anymore like I did in the beginning. I realized it's print to order is just a better business model for me. And it's a pretty quick turnaround. So customers are willing to wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is, for their fabric. I also make pillows from that fabric and sell them through the studio here in Bristol, as well as on an Etsy shop. Now, along with all that, I still design for other large companies, just like I did in New York. I've always done both. I find it hard to say no to companies that want to hire me to help design their collections. And it's another revenue stream for me.
Yeah.
So I work with companies kind of all over the place. I've worked with the companies in India and in New York and in North Carolina. They basically find me online, love what I do, my aesthetic, the way I design, and they ask me to help them. So that's what I'm doing currently, actually, a lot of that. And it's fun. It's a fun process. I get to see a finished collection that somebody else paid for. None of my money had to that collection, and I get credit for it, and they're almost always happy. The process is pretty streamlined. I take on the project, I design it here in my studio. It's all done in Photoshop, and it's sent via an FTP site to their factory. I mean, I do explain to all these clients that my mission with Oliveira Textiles was to try to create a really sustainable product, not just the run-of-the-mill, any kind of conventional cotton or crappy polyester. But it's a hard getting all these other companies that I work with on board with that is not easy. Some of them say, okay, I'm interested. Maybe we could talk about organic cotton. Most of them aren't yet. The home furnishings companies that I work with are a little more intrigued by it. The fashion people, although there's a big movement in fashion right now, especially with what's happened with COVID-19, to be more sustainable, to produce less, to make seasonless clothing instead of 5 times a year, five different collections. So that's an interesting conversation that we're having right now with some fashion people. But so that's really it. That's full circle. Here we are in Bristol today. I met Katie.
Yeah, that's my first question. So how did you both meet?
So I met Dawn when she was part of a local tour they have here, which is called Bristol Art Night, Bristol Warren Art Night. And at the time, Dawn had a studio space, retail space. She was on this tour. Her studio was one of the stops. And so I was back to Rhode Island, but new to the specific town that I'm in. And I thought, all right, well, I'm going to see what's going on in this town and in the neighboring town. And so I went to Dawn's studio. And Dawn, you had pillows. You had a number of things you were selling.
Yeah, it was a lovely little shop. It faced the street, and I was actually selling fabric and pillows out of that shop.
Were you on Hope Street?
No, I was on High Street.
I went to Roger Williams, so I spent 5 years.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, spent 5 years in Bristol. One of my favorite places on the planet.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So I took Dawn's card from that tour, and I thought, first of all, I would like some pillows with Dawn's fabric on them, and then I thought, well, I would also love for some of my future clients to think about using some of Dawn's fabrics in these residential settings, and so I just kind of stored Dawn's info in the back of my brain. And then I did Dawn did do a number of textiles for my husband and I for our house. And that we were really happy with how that all worked out. And then I had a couple clients. I had some opportunities with clients who were, using my services for full design, which I love because it gives me the opportunity to get into things like textiles.
Yeah, that's fun.
And so we brought Dawn in on a few projects, I think several actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really, so we worked together. That's how we.
And that was my first introduction to your work. I had never seen the kind of work that you did until we started to work on, what was the first place? That lovely little cottage in Warren that you reworked the kitchen. You renovated his kitchen.
Yeah, so we did an addition. Yeah, that was a whole house renovation.
Yeah,
and,
beautiful.
Yes.
So how long have you known each other? When was that introduction at the store?
I think that was like 7 years ago, Dawn, maybe.
I think about 7 years ago, because I've been in the studio at least 5 years.
So you've known each other for a while, and you've worked together several times. It sounds like. How did the inspiration of the podcast come about?
Well, I think we had fun working on these different projects together, and I kind of felt that just our design focus and the ease of our design conversation. I just thought it would lend itself. And I loved that Dawn is coming at the design world from a different place than I am. And I was also really impressed with the sustainability approach of Dawn's business and kind of your core mission, Dawn, that you feel very strong about. It's very clear what her mission is. And I think Dawn communicates really well. So I thought, well, that could work well in a podcast situation.
And Katie is tenacious, persistent, and funny. So I was going to say no to this podcast, I'll have you know, because I live in the studio. I work 24/7. I said, how the heck am I going to fit a podcast in? But
I think that was the beginning. That was the biggest hurdle. We were like, wait a minute, like what kind of time commitment is this? You know?
Exactly. But as it turns out, it's fun. It's a really nice diversion for me to get out of the studio, at least in the beginning. Now I'm in the studio doing the podcast.
Right.
But it was fun, and I really do enjoy talking to Katie and discussing both of our career paths and how we relate to each other. And it's fun to talk to an audience about what we do.
What's the podcast about? It's called Design Me a House. So people can go subscribe to Design Me a House podcast. What is it about, and who's the audience?
Well, the audience is, Dawn's point is, we really want it to be a general audience. So it's homeowners and or interior designer folks. I think of it as really the same kind of audience that I'm trying to appeal to in my books. So people who are already professionals, people who are already architects or maybe textile designers themselves, they may be more tangentially interested. We're really, I think, trying to reach all of our shared clients and customers with information that I just think will help them no matter what stage of a design project they're in or how big or little that project is, to kind of familiarize a general audience with the language of design. And not just architectural design, but interior design. And really, I also want to learn from Dawn in conversation with Dawn. So it's not like this is this big selfless endeavor.
Yeah.
I do it because it's fun for me and I'm learning every episode. So we want to engage ourselves, but in the process, hopefully engage a listener.
So what's the format? Is it just a conversation between the two of you? Do you interview other people or tell any sort of stories, or is it just sort of a casual conversation?
We do. We have 5 categories we created for the podcast show, and we try to design episodes, if you will, that fit into these 5 categories. And one of them is featured guests.
Okay.
So we do hope, like, maybe we don't always do these in order. I mean, we're just starting out, but theoretically, every 5th episode would be an interview with someone we'd bring in, maybe virtually bring in. So we've only done 1 featured guest. So all the other episodes have been us. And so the 5 categories, just to name them off, the first one is inspirations. And within that, we've come up with this expression, really Dawn came up with this expression, design hero. So we've talked about our design heroes. We discovered a new design hero that we talked about, new to us. The second category we call this with that. And so that's more of a design focused category. What works with what? Does this work with that? And why? Big ideas is the third category. And in that bucket, we've placed sustainability. Dawn has so much experience and knowledge about sustainability that we thought, and it's such a huge topic. We thought, well, we could use that over and over.
And both are.
I mean, there's, and again, it's so different from our 2 vantage points. So there's a lot of content there. Shop talk, a little bit kind of behind the scenes kind of stuff about being designers and architects, and what we talk about when we're talking about maybe the business of what we do. And then the featured guest was the 5th category.
Yeah, that sounds like a great format. And because it's an audience, a general audience of basically homeowners or residential design enthusiasts, right? That's sort of the market, the people who are passionate or enthusiastic about their home, right? That they want to learn more about design and more about architecture and more about textiles, and it's a great mix of a format.
Yeah, we hope the audience can take the information we're offering, the process of design, and implement it in some way if they're working on their own or in a small renovation, and implement that and not feel overwhelmed or intimidated.
Right. So teaching your audience along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you do this? How do you record? And I'm sure before COVID-19 is one answer, and then after COVID-19 is another. But so share a little bit about the technical aspects of it. How do you record, and how often do you do that?
Go, Katie.
Okay, so in the beginning, we didn't know what we were doing, so we thought maybe we should take a class, right? We're both into education, so I think we're like, all right, there's got to be a way to learn about how to do this. So locally in Providence, there's this organization called What Cheer Writers Club. Definitely want to give a shout out to them.
So it's what cheer, CHEER?
Yeah, it's an expression in Providence. It goes back,
colonial say.
Yeah, and it meant kind of like, how's your day? What's your mood? What's your cheer? What cheer? And there are a lot of buildings and enterprises and organizations in Providence that have that incorporated into their name, which I find interesting. Anyway, so there's this thing called What Cheer Writers Club, and they have a podcast recording studio, and they offer monthly, or they have previously offered monthly, a podcasting 101 class. So you go into their studio. They have a little classroom setting, and there were about 10 people at a time in this class, and you can only fit about 5 people in the studio. So you take turns, and we learned how to use the equipment, and we talked about the bigger picture stuff of like, what is a podcast and how do you do it? But I think that kind of got us started. So that's where we recorded in the beginning. They have great equipment. We didn't want to deal with, oh God, what kind of technology? Like, how should we record it? We just didn't want to start off with that. We wanted to kind of get into the content. We wanted to get to the fun part faster. So we just went to the studio and recorded in the beginning until the COVID-19 thing. And now we've started recording remotely.
Yeah. And that's a great way to do it, right? Because that's very often the barrier to start a podcast. It's because it's that technology part of it, the equipment part of it. How do you record? What equipment to buy? How do you get it up on the internet? That's overwhelming. And people stop right there, right? They don't have the opportunity that you've had in being able to share your knowledge with an audience, and I think that opportunity is missed when people stop at that moment.
Yeah. And the other thing is people don't happen to have a handy dandy podcast recording studio near them that offers classes. Is there's, and you know this, Mark, because you're a podcast, there's lots of podcasts about podcasting.
Yes,
and I
yes.
think, Dawn, we listened to several in the beginning,
Mhm.
because we were trying to figure out format and all the rest of it.
And location, how are we going to do it, But Katie's the one that found out about WhatShare, and it turned out to be the perfect solution. It's a beautiful little studio. All the equipment is there. It's very sharp, clear recording. And we knew at that point that, that wasn't going to be a roadblock. The listeners will be able to hear a nice, clear conversation.
Yeah.
Actually,
Unlike
can I tell a fun Dawn story? Because we went at the Podcasting 101 class. Dawn had been humoring me, I think, because I'm like, oh, Dawn, no, we got to try this. And she's like, oh, my God. So I take her into this podcast class, and they take us into the first time either of us had the sound canceling, headset and the real fancy microphone. We're in the studio, and they hooked us all up to different channels so we could hear each other and see the recording on the different channels on a laptop or whatever type of computer it was. And so they hooked up Dawn's headset and all of ours, and we all started talking, just saying this and that. And I interrupted, and I said, wait a minute. What is going on with Dawn's mic? I was like, how come Dawn's mic is so much clearer than everyone else's? And they're like, okay, all the mics are the same. And there was a guy in the room who had radio experience, and he said she has a natural radio voice. And I can't remember
Which
who
I
this
still
gentleman
find
was.
flexing.
But it
okay.
was fantastic. And he's like, yes, your voice, Dawn, something about the recording, just very clear. And I think when we could see, okay, this is going to sound fine.
Yeah.
Let's not worry about that. Let's just shelve that problem and get into the bigger picture stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does sound good. I've listened to episodes and it sounds very good. And so and I think that's a very important piece of a podcast, because you can have all the knowledge to share in the world, and you could even be super entertaining. But if the audio is not high quality, many people will go away because it's annoying, right?
It's annoying. Yeah. And there are too many other podcasts out there to listen to.
Exactly.
There's so many.
So the audio is very important. And so that idea of going somewhere to learn how to get that audio right, how to buy the right equipment, is a really important step. We will return to our conversation after this quick break to say thank you to our platform sponsors here at EntreArchitect, ARCAT, Gusto, and Monograph. Unless you're working for one of the top architecture firms in the world, you know what it's like to work with limited resources. But there's one resource that you can access no matter what size your architecture firm: ARCAT.com. ARCAT is the online solution for your building product information needs. They offer BIM objects, CAD details, specifications, and much, much more from leading manufacturers from all over the world. Research building products and get the information you need all in the same place, fast and easy. And best of all, it's free. ARCAT doesn't charge you anything for these resources. You don't even need to register or give them your email. And when I say it's free, there's no catch. Visit arcat.com and try it out. Search for the resources that you need, and ARCAT will deliver. That's arcat.com. That's ARCAT.com. arcat.com. Build better. Taking care of your employees has never been more important than now. For years, Gusto's been helping more than 100,000 small business owners run payroll, offer benefits, onboard new employees, and more. They call it the People Platform. And it doesn't just look nice, and it does look nice. It also works. Your payroll taxes are filed, deductions are calculated, and your team gets paid. You can even offer health insurance and 401ks as you grow. As a listener of the EntreArchitect podcast, you will get 3 months free after your first payroll when you go to EntreArchitect.com/gusto. That's EntreArchitect.com/gusto. And make sure that you let them know that you're a member of the EntreArchitect community. Gusto, the people platform. Visit EntreArchitect.com/gusto today. Are you tired of spreadsheets? Of using spreadsheets to keep track of your project plans, your budgets, your staff, your time? Spreadsheets. Our friends at Monograph know what that's like because they're architects too. They know all about that spreadsheet mess that you're dealing with, so they did something about it. Monograph is a time tracking and project management tool built for architects by architects to respond to the challenges that small and medium-sized firms face on their quest to a profitable business. With Monograp's integrated suites of tools, you'll stay on track and on budget without the overhead of wrangling spreadsheets every day. Improve your firm's operations today. Try Monograph for free at EntreArchitect.com/monograph. Ditch the spreadsheets. Visit EntreArchitect.com/monograph and try Monograph today for free. Arcat, Gusto, and Monograph. Please visit our platform sponsors today and thank them for supporting you, the EntreArchitect community. When COVID-19 did happen and you did need to go home and get locked down, and you did continue to record, how did you do that? How did you learn enough through that course to be able to buy the equipment that you're using?
I think we had a handout, Dawn. I saved the handout from the course because we didn't need all the stuff on the handout because we were like, yeah, we're not doing any of that. We'll just use the studio, shelve that page.
Right.
But I still had the page that
Surprise.
recommended the difference, and I had listened to the podcast on podcasting. Yep. I wish I could give a proper plug to whoever it was I listened to. And
you could send me the link if you want to look it up. And send it. We'll put it on the show notes. Yeah.
We found it somehow. And, maybe, anyway. This gentleman that I listened to on the podcast about podcasting recommended the editing program that we ended up getting because that was also on the list that we got from the class. And I was like, okay, it's being referred to twice, done, next decision. So we got the editing software, and then someone recommended, and I'm a little foggy on going, and maybe this is just random, but someone said that they had heard good things about the audio quality if you go through Google Hangouts, as opposed to many of these other shared meeting things. So that's what we did. So we record through Google Hangouts on this software that I acquired, and it's been okay. Like, I have an echoey space, so I found I had to put a lot of pillows around my office.
Yeah.
Dawn has fabric
you
and
have
stuff.
those.
I do. I have like Dawn stylish pillows, and Dawn has so many textiles in her studio that I felt like she didn't really have the echo problem that I had.
Yeah. The fabric helps a lot, which is why I have the curtain behind me and the carpet on the floor. It helps the audio quite a bit. And so that's very interesting. A couple of potential people it may have been was Cliff Ravenscraft. He's the podcast answer man. When you
I think I would remember that because I love that alliteration of the K sound or the C sound. No, it was not that.
And it could have been Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income. He also has a great podcast.
It was not him either.
Okay.
So,
well, if you find it, send it to me and I'll put it in the show notes because I think people will look for it. And I'll put the show notes those two that I mentioned. And so if anybody's interested in that.
Yeah.
All right. So this is very, very interesting. So we talked about how you record, how you're actually getting the sound right. Then the last three things I want to know is, and I can sort of give you a heads up on what I'm asking. I want to talk about a little bit about the show notes side of it, because Katie, you're a writer and a photographer, and the show notes look really good, and so I'm sure that's part of it. And then I want to know about how you're getting the word out, how you're promoting this, and then if there's any sort of advantage of doing this. I understand that you're coming together, sharing knowledge with one another, helping to sort of educate your audience, but is there a specific end goal in mind of doing all of this work? So let's start with the show notes. Do you sort of have an idea of how and why you put together the show notes?
Well, as you know from doing a podcast, it's just audio, right? And we work in a visual art, both of us. So we felt it was really important to put, visual content references to what we're talking about somewhere. Like the most recent episode we did was dormers, and that was very funny because poor Dawn was like trying to bear with me in my description of these dormers.
Katie knows a lot about dormers. A whole lot.
I listened to that episode. It was a great episode.
So there are times when you just have to have a visual, and so, but then there are other topics we have where actually getting visuals was a little tricky. We're like, oh my God, well, how are we going to illustrate this? But basically sometimes, and you may have noticed, Mark, when you you call them show notes, we call them blog posts.
Yeah.
And they are of a different length. So if there's something that I felt we left out or something that really needed more fleshing out, I will make a much longer post with actually some information that's new to the discussion that really wasn't even part of the podcast because I felt like, it should have been part, or maybe this is a better way to supplement it. And then others are quite short. It's like, just go listen to it. It's all there.
Yeah.
But here's the imagery, and here are the, the necessary links to what we talk about.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it's not really show notes. It really is a companion blog to the podcast.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a lot of work. Katie's handling all that, but it's so well done.
It is very well done, which is why I wanted to bring it. And people can go look at it at designmeahouse.com. They can go see the whole thing. They can see all of the posts and how it's put together. Very well done. So I wanted to make sure we touched on that. Then the idea of promotion. How are you getting an audience? How are you getting the word out about what you're doing and how you're doing it?
This is where we look at each other blankly. Well, we're glad to be here. We're trying to do things like this. We've gotten some local press. And then Dawn has a pretty good presence online with her website and her social media. And so we've been promoting it there. We've been promoting it on my stuff, my website, my social media. But we're really, I think that we are trying to figure that out. How do you get the word out? There are so many podcasts.
Right.
And people only have so much time. And how do you reach the people who want to hear your podcast? I mean, our friends have been very polite, right?
Yes.
In the beginning, we were like, we need reviews. So we were like getting friends and family, like, say something, So they're like kind of maxed out. I think we have to we kind of find a bigger audience.
Right. You spent the family and friends balance. You're overbalanced.
But let me share something on this whole thing.
Yeah.
My neighbor, where I live, right across the street from me, used to work for WGBH, and she was part of a program called Chronicle that Boston airs. It's a segment on, small towns around New England, and they focused on Bristol. And she did a lovely segment in my studio last year on the town of Bristol, and focused on several businesses, and ended up here in my studio. Well, I mentioned to her, and it was great. I got a lot of, calls and customers from that. But she mentioned to me last week, she said on the street when I was leaving in the morning, she was like, Dawn, you have a podcast. I love it. I love it. It's great. And you should call the people at Chronicle and tell them you're doing this podcast. And I did. And now they've got our podcast linked on that page, that great. Chronicle Boston page. So, there are little things like that happen, and we just kind of jump on it and take advantage of it. But that was, just so you know, Katie, she absolutely loved it. So I was like, wow, people are listening.
She's not related to us, Dawn.
She's
That's
not
right.
related.
Finally, first one. Yay.
Yay. It was great.
That's very funny. And I think that sharing your stories, especially your stories, because you both have really great stories. And so sharing those stories on other podcasts that have similar audiences is a great way to boost your audience, because they're already podcast listeners, right? That's the first hurdle,
right?
Is to get your information out to people who already want podcasts and people who are interested in what you're talking about. And so, it's great to be on my show. My show's all architects, but the way we can leverage my show is to ask our audience to share a link to your show to their clients and their friends, and because definitely all of the EntreArchitect community should go listen, because there's lots to learn there. And it's a great podcast, so you'll be inspired by that. But you will also have a tool to be able to share with your clients when you need to share, to have them teach. You're trying to teach them something, you can share an episode with them. And so I would recommend people awesome. Do that as well.
Yeah. So if you have clients confused about dormers.
Yes, there's an hour-long episode on dormers. You should go listen. So let's wrap things up before I ask the final question that I ask everybody. But I wanted to know, sort of the benefit to you, because podcasting is a lot of work, as you know. It takes a lot of work to start it. It takes a lot of effort and discipline to continue with it. Most podcasts don't last beyond 10 episodes. And so why do it?
Well, I think we do it, as I was saying, I think it's both at least from my point of view, both for my own interest. I'm interested in learning how Dawn works, and I'm also interested in shaping and creating a new, I was going to say product. It's not really a product, a new entity that serves the design community, homeowners,
Exactly.
I mean, basically, I think we want to make a difference in people's design lives. And since we're both in the residential world, we feel pretty strongly that if you can make a difference in someone's home, that will really make a difference in their lives. And I think it's, what is the goal? It's just, it could be as small as to make a difference. There isn't like some premeditated, there isn't some premeditated, if this, then that. I think we launched it in part because I thought it would be fun, frankly. And I'd love to learn about doing new things. And it seemed like a fun way to get the word out in a different avenue. Like they always say, go where your listener or your client is. Well, maybe some of them are big podcast aficionados, but they're not big on buying Katie's books, or so it's just kind of maybe another way to reach folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's just, I really enjoy working with Katie and talking to Katie about what she does as an architect. I don't know a lot about architecture or design of architecture, but it so relates to the customer I work with directly. They're renovating their homes. That's why they're hiring me to come in with textiles. So, that connection between Katie and I in these two worlds of textiles and architecture it's a perfect symbiosis, I think. I really am enjoying learning a lot about what Katie does and how she deals with her clients, how she talks to her clients. And so I think it'll benefit both of us in the long run. I hope so. If we stay on the air.
Yes. I mean, I know we're up to our next episode is only going to be episode 8. And you mentioned that I'm on episode 250. What episode number is this for you, Mark?
This is episode 343.
Oh, wow. My God. Yeah. So, we're just newbies. We're newbies out here trying to get started.
Yeah. Well,
that's very impressive.
I am sure that if you choose to, you will have a very large audience because it's a great conversation. You have great chemistry. You focused on the audio and the quality. And so you have all the different pieces. And so I definitely, I think that you'll be very successful. Just keep going because that's the hardest part is the discipline up front to get started.
Yep.
And your audience will grow slowly, and it'll just keep going. It'll just keep growing and growing and growing. Before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you both the last question, the final question that I ask everybody. I'm going to start with Katie. What is one thing that a small firm architect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow?
Okay, so this answer is something we've been taught since we were, children, but ask questions. I just feel like the more questions you ask, the more you're going to learn, the more interested you're going to be in asking the next question. The chance, opportunity of something new might come along when you ask questions. I think all the things that I've done with my business have been the result of a question. What can I do differently? What could be next? Oh, gee, how did they do that? How would I do that? How could I do something like that, but in a different way? So, and who is that person? What does that person do? Oh, that's interesting. When did they start doing that? How did they start? So I just find asking the questions and being curious about, the design world, but also the people around you. I mean, Dawn and I met someone who had a connection with one of the topics we talked about this exhibit that's coming out by this textile designer named Susie Zuzek, who we had never heard of. And there's an exhibit of her work coming out at the Cooper Hewitt this summer. And we only learned about this artist who we both thought was so fascinating because I happened to ask a question of someone who was in, I row in a rowing shell, out in the nearby cove. And someone else who rows in that group, I asked them what they did. And then it kind of just led to this discovery
Amazing.
That they had a connection with this book and this exhibit, and it's just you just never know.
Yeah, and that happens
so I guess
from curiosity, right? Everything that you
Yes.
just said sounds like be curious.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's amazing.
Great.
Yeah,
It is amazing. That particular story was amazing. Just from that one question you asked that woman, it turned into a whole podcast and endless discussion.
Did you
Meetings in my studio, everything.
did you
Great.
share
It
the
was wonderful.
background of that in that episode? Because I saw that episode. I haven't listened to it.
I'm not sure. Maybe I think we just said that we had met
referenced it.
someone.
Yeah.
We just said that we had met someone
Yeah.
who had a connection. Yep.
Interesting. How about you, Don? What is one thing that a small firm architect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow?
Well, that's a tough question for me as a non-architect, but I would say, because I have worked with other architects besides Katie, I think from my own perspective and trying to adhere to my mission, maybe architects could ask questions specifically about, all of the systems and materials that they specify and how they build as it relates to, the future, sustainably produced buildings, sustainably built buildings, however that happened. I've had conversations with Katie about how involved the architecture world is when it comes to sustainability. I make one product. I can make it in a very clean way. Architecture is a much more complex endeavor. There are systems involved, much bigger than mine. So educating, if I'm talking to an architect, educating you about parameters in the built environment, really thinking about the materials and the systems, because we can't just keep making things and building buildings that have no consideration for the future and how they're built and how they use water and all of that. And the same with my own business. I really want to continue to make a sustainable product because it's important not to use up all of the, what's the word? Just to continue to make a clean product that is healthy for people to use.
Yeah.
And not make so much of it that it ends up in a landfill.
Right.
That's all.
Yep. Very good. Dawn Oliveira, Katie Hutchison, that's their names. You can find more about Katie and everything she does at katiehutchison.com. We'll have links on our show notes. Everything that Dawn is doing is at oliveiratextiles.net. oliveiratextiles.net. It's OLIVEIRA textiles.net. You can learn all about the podcast. This is a link that you should share with all your clients. designmeahouse.com. It's basically the companion blog to the podcast, but you can also listen to the podcast there. You can subscribe to the podcast there. You could follow them on Instagram at Design Me a House Podcast. So go subscribe there as well. And if you have any questions or suggestions for episodes, hit them at the email info@designmeahouse.com. Katie, Dawn, thank you very much for spending some time with me and sharing
Thank
your
you,
knowledge
Mark.
today at EntreArchitect Podcast.
Thank you, Mark, so much for your
Great.
interest. We really appreciate
Really.
it.
Yeah, this was wonderful. Really good. Fun.
You have been listening to EntreArchitect Podcast, episode 341. The link to share is entrearchitect.com/episode 341. That's the link to share. I ask you to do that every week. Just one person. Think about one person who may not know what we're doing here at EntreArchitect Podcast. Send them the link, entrearchitect.com/episode 341 for this episode. They listen to the episode, they subscribe, we grow, we have a bigger impact on the profession, one architect at a time, and it's because of you, because you shared that link today. So thank you for doing that. We grow every month because of people like you sharing each week, link by link, architect by architect. Thank you. entrearchitect.com/episode 341. Katie Hutchison, Dawn Oliveira. What a great conversation I had. Go check them out. designmeahouse.com. Go like and subscribe their podcast. I appreciate that. And before I let you go, we will, Jeff Eccles and I, we will provide all the guidance, all the support, all the resources you need to build a powerful, effective brand and start attracting your best clients in 30 days. 30 days, guaranteed 30 days. We can do that. Go check it out, entrearchitect.com/build your brand. We are going to work with you day by day. Every day, we're going to work to build a new brand that is going to attract the clients that you want. Are you on the feast or famine roller coaster, right? Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's terrible, or maybe you're working with the wrong client, right? You're not working with your ideal client. They're not paying you what you deserve. You're not working on the projects that you want to work with. You need to build a brand to attract a consistent, ideal client to your firm day in, day out, every day. We can help you do that at the Build Your Brand Workshop. EntreArchitect.com/buildyourbrand to learn more. Go check it out. We're going to work 30 days. On day 31, you'll be ready to launch, ready to go. EntreArchitect.com/buildyourbrand. Go check that out. Thank you, my friends. Thanks for listening. Love, learn, and share what you know. We'll see you next week.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gābl Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gābl Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gābl Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gābl Media.
Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark Arlepage, founder of EntreArchitect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.